हेलो एंड गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन। रिसेंटली हमने देखा 145 से ज़्यादा मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को सस्पेंड कर दिया गया था। ये मेंबर्स लोकसभा से भी थे और राज्यसभा से भी थे। उनको सस्पेंड करने का कारण बताया गया कि दीज मेंबर्स वर क्रिएटिंग डिसरप्शन इन द प्रोसीडिंग्स ऑफ द हाउस, दे वर नॉट कंप्लाइंग विद द रूल्स ऑफ द हाउस एंड they were basically engaged in some sort of misbehavior. These were the reasons that were put forth while suspending such members. ये मूव बहुत ज़्यादा क्रिटिसाइज भी हुआ मीडिया में। ऐसा कहा गया कि आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस दिस इज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट टाइम, परहैप्स वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट टाइम जब इतना ज़्यादा एक्सटेंट पे मास सस्पेंशन हुआ हमारे पार्लियामेंट में। एंड सम पीपल इवन वेंट अप टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ कॉलिंग इट अ मॉकरी ऑफ द डेमोक्रेसी। सो ये सस्पेंशन क्यों जरूरी है, वाई दीज प्रोविजंस आर देयर and why the presiding officers were compelled to suspend the members of the parliament. We are of course we are not going to get into the political details, that is not essential from the examination point of view, but of course we need to understand the statutory provisions that governs the suspension process, right? And from exams point of view, these rules are also important because let's say in 2022 UPSC has asked a question on the rules of the procedures of Lok Sabha regarding the deputy speaker and the rules of the procedure of the Lok Sabha, right? So we have understood the context, okay, that today we are going to talk about the suspension of the members of the parliament, right? So the first question is, what is a suspension? What is a suspension is the first question, right? Suspension. So suspension basically means it is the temporary mechanism which through which a member is debarred to attend the proceedings of the house temporarily, if I put it in this way. So temporarily is the key word. We should not confuse the word suspension with the word disqualification or the expulsion, right? There is a great difference between these two terms, disqualification and suspension. Suspension is like, say, for the rest of the proceedings of a particular session of the house, right? The suspension which we are talking about right now, the members were suspended from the winter session, right? So and this and as far as disqualification is concerned, disqualification is like member is debarred from the membership of the house. He is not just suspended for a particular session, rather member को सदस्यता से ही वंचित कर दिया जाता है. The member is debarred from the membership of the house. That is a subtle difference. Both the issues are very much in news. For example, Mahama Moitra was expelled from the parliament. That was not suspension, right? And the issue that we are talking right now is about suspension. Okay, so coming to, we have understood the meaning of the suspension. Now let us discuss the constitutional provisions regarding suspension. If I put this question, that which article of the constitution provides the procedure regarding the suspension of the members of the parliament, what should be the answer? Okay, the answer should be, there is no such provision in the constitution itself which governs the suspension of a member of the parliament. Constitution में specifically ऐसा कुछ नहीं लिखा गया है या ऐसा कोई procedure नहीं बताया गया है जो कि members के suspension को govern करता है. The constitution only highlights that speaker or the presiding officers are responsible for maintaining the decorum of the house, but there are no elaborate provisions on the suspension of the members. So the question is, like, from where does the house gets this authority to suspend the members? So the answer is, the members are suspended on the basis of rules of procedures of Lok Sabha and rules of procedure for Rajya Sabha. These rules are different for both the houses. Both the houses enact their own rules of proceedings and they work within the bounds of those rules, right? सस्पेंशन के जो मामले हैं वो भी उन्हीं रूल्स के तहत ही डिसाइड होते हैं. सो वी शुड बी वेरी क्लियर इफ वी कम अक्रॉस अ क्वेश्चन that constitution provides for the suspension of the members from the house, something like the statement of this sort, then we should be very cautious that constitution does not contain any such procedure regarding the suspension of the members, right? Then the question is, do we really need to understand, or do we really need to study the rules of the procedures of the house? Again, the answer is no. As far as the pattern of examination is concerned, we don't need to delve deeper into the rules of the house, the rules number, and the intricacies, right? But certainly we cannot say that these are totally not so important or totally unimportant, because as I said earlier, in 2022 UPSC has already asked a question regarding the rules of the procedures, and since this issue has been very much in news, or has been in news, it was very contentious, and it somehow lays a question mark on the efficiency of the parliamentary democracy. So we really need to understand some of the important rules. Certainly when we are going to discuss the rules, the rule numbers are not important, either from preliminary perspective or prelims perspective or from mains perspective, but the key provisions and the repercussions of such a suspension becomes very important to understand. There can be a direct question in prelims, and there can be an analytical question in mains, in which we can quote these rules. Okay, that according to these rules, suspension of the members has been made, right? Provided it fits into the context of the question, right? So let us understand in brief certain rules which are important. Again, I would reiterate, rule numbers are least important things to memorize or understand. Don't put much thought on that. Just understand the basic provisions and the provisions around which questions can be framed. We'll discuss those provisions, right? Okay, so let us discuss the rules. As I said earlier, the rules of procedure for Rajya Sabha and rules of procedure for Lok Sabha, both are different, right? We cannot say a member of Rajya Sabha can be suspended on the basis of rules of procedures of Lok Sabha. This is absurd. Both the house are governed by their separate rules, right? So we will understand accordingly, right? Okay, so if I divide the screen into two parts, say this is for Lok Sabha, and this is for Rajya Sabha. Right. So let us first understand rule number 373, or we can construct this in a better manner. Okay, just a minute. You can write here a rule of speaker, role of members, right? Similarly here, rule chairman's role, and role of members. Right. So let us understand. So the first rule that we are going to talk about is rule number 373 of Lok Sabha, of the rules of procedure of Lok Sabha, right? So what does this rule state? This rule states that speaker has certain powers to take or to ensure discipline in the house, right? So what happens under this rule is, speaker, he has a role to play. What he does is, he names certain members, he will name certain members, and they will be suspended for the rest of the day. Please mark my words, they will be suspended from the proceedings of the rest of the day. It is neither the rest of the session or it is not as good as disqualification, right? The key word is they are suspended for the rest of the day. So name the member and he will be immediately suspended for the rest of the day. So in this case, do we need approval of the House? Yes or no? No, we do not need approval of the House in such cases. There is no role of House in such cases. If Speaker says, okay, Mr. X, you are suspended for the violation or being indisciplined or a violation of the provisions of the rules of the House, you are suspended. The House will have no say, or a separate motion is not needed from the House, right? Now, Rule 374. Just a minute. Rule number 374. Now, this rule is very important in the present context. In this rule, where it is deemed that the member has violated the authority of the chair or abuses his position in the House or created any sort of indiscipline or obstructed in the proceedings of the House, there can be any such reason, right? In this case, what Speaker does is Speaker names the member. The Speaker will say like this, okay, I name Mr. X for violating the provisions of the rules of the procedure or for creating disruptions in the House. Basically, the key word is a Speaker is going to name a particular member. And then what will happen is, once the Speaker name the member of the House, the floor leader, say floor leader, what has happened to this? Just a minute. The floor leader will move a motion for the suspension, right? So if the motion is adopted by the House by simple majority, the motion gets adopted and the members are suspended. Now the key thing here is they are suspended for the rest of the session. Rest of the session. Right. I hope you will be able to understand the handwriting. Let me write it in a more clear manner. Rest of the session. So the present MPs who have been suspended, they are suspended under this rule for the rest of the session, right? Some of them might have been suspended in this rule also, but this rule becomes very, very significant. Of course, I would reiterate that you don't need to memorize the name of this rule. That this is rule 374. This is not important to memorize the rule. The provision is very, very important to understand, right? Okay. Before discussing other rules of Lok Sabha, let us discuss some of the rules of Rajya Sabha too, right? So in Rajya Sabha, we'll discuss rule number 255 and 256. 255 and 256. So the provisions that we have understood here will mutatis mutandis apply to the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha में भी same यही provision चलेंगी. Speaker के जगह you will have the role of chairman, right? तो chairman under rule 25 एक दिन के लिए किसी member को suspend कर सकता है for rest of the time. Suppose if a member has been engaged into something indisciplinary thing, say at 12 right? So the chairman can say that okay, for rest of the day you are not eligible or you are not entitled to sit in the house, I suspend you, right? He will name the member and he will suspend the member, right? And rule number 26, of course he has a role to play, members have no role to play. Rule number 256, here the same thing will apply. The chairman of the Rajya Sabha will name the members whom he intend to suspend, not the intent to suspend is not the right word, but whom he has found in being engaged in some sort of indisciplinary actions, like entering into the well of the house, or shouting some slogans, or disrupting the proceedings of the house, right? So in this, the chairman again will name the members, and the members will have to move a motion, and the motion will have to be adopted by the by the members of the house, right? So, and one more small thing, the members, when they are adopting a motion for the suspension of the members of other members of the house, they can also adopt a motion through which they can revoke the suspension, right? The members have the power. They will again move a motion to revoke the suspension of the members of the house, and as we have seen in this particular this Lok Sabha's case, members are also suspended from Rajya Sabha for the rest of the session, right? The same thing applies here, rest of the session. They are not disqualified. They are not disqualified. Please keep in mind, these two provisions are very different, right? Suspension as well as disqualification. So okay, we have understood the basic provisions in the process. To keep it in our memory, we can go through a small video where we will be able to understand how the proceedings take place, right? Let us see. Okay.
Right from the start of today's proceedings, some honorable members have disrupted the house by shouting slogans, even entered the well of the house. I hereby name the following member.
So, did you notice the Rajya Sabha chairman said that I hereby name the members? It is very important to name the members. That is why when the chairperson or the presiding officer says that okay, I'm going to name the members, this is the significance, right?
Under Rule 256 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business,
a total of 45 MPs have.
And after this, we'll see the minister will move a motion. Okay, so that particular part of the video is not there in this video, but after this, what happens when the presiding officer names some of the members, the floor leader or say one of the member will rise up and will move a motion, will move a resolution that these members should be suspended from the house, and later the house votes on such a motion, and the motion, if gets adopted, the members get suspended, right? So now coming back to our discussion, right? So in Rajya Sabha, as far as suspension is concerned, there is no other rule, right? We have to understand rule number 255 and 256. But in Lok Sabha, there is an additional rule. What is that rule? That rule is 374A. 374A. And interestingly, it is called as automatic suspension. Automatic suspension, right? So in this rule, what happens is speaker will name some of the members on the grounds of again indiscipline or creating grave disorder in the house, and grave disorder will include everything like coming into the well, shouting slogans, and the member will get automatically suspended under this rule. Automatically suspended means that a motion for their removal is not needed, right? The member will be automatically suspended. Now for what period the member gets suspended for rest of the day, or for remainder of the session, or there are some other provisions. So there are some other provisions. The other provisions are the members get suspended for 5 days or remainder of the session, whichever is less. Whichever is less, right? So these were the provisions. Now the question is, from examination point of view, what do we need to understand? Are we going to mug up all these provisions or all these things? No, the questions are not asked in this manner. What we have to understand, we have to clearly focus on the question statements as far as prelims is concerned. Now suppose if the question statement says the constitution provides detailed provisions regarding the suspension of the members, the answer is no. Constitution does not provide any provision regarding the procedure of the suspension of the members, right? So these things will help you to eliminate the wrong statements. Again, a question might come that before like a suspension of the member of the house of a parliament has to be necessarily approved by the other members of the house, or needs to be approved by a motion in the house. Again, this statement is wrong, because here we have seen that suspension is possible without approval of the members of the house. In this situation, we have seen that suspension is possible without approval of the members of the house, right? If a statement comes that okay, a member once suspended will remain suspended for the rest of the session, right? The statement is correct. The statement is correct according to say rule number 374 and 256, because they are going to remain suspended for the rest of the session. But if the question statement is framed in this manner, that the member once suspended will always remain suspended for the rest of the session, then it becomes an incorrect statement, because here suspension is for the rest of the day, here the suspension is for 5 days or for the remainder of the session, whichever is less, right? So we have to be very careful while interpreting the statements, and these particularly this matrix is going to help you in interpreting the statements, right? So this is all about the what we say rules regarding the suspension of the house. Okay, one more thing is very important. One more question can be asked, like okay, if a member is suspended, right? A member is suspended, now what are the consequences? So these are very important consequences of suspension. You may expect a list based question prelims, where they will ask list based question, where they will put a question, provide you this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason, and how many of the above can be the consequences of suspension of a member. So it becomes important to understand, right? So we'll discuss few of the consequences. First such consequence is a member once suspended is not allowed to sit in the chamber of the parliament. He is not allowed to sit in the galleries or lobby of the house, right? So once a member is suspended, he is not allowed to sit in the chamber, in the gallery, or in the lobby of the house. He is suspended. He is just suspended and he has to leave the precincts, right? The second important implication is a suspended member cannot participate in parliamentary committee meetings. So the underlying idea is a member cannot participate in the meetings of the parliamentary committees. Both the houses have their committees, say standing committees or any committee of the parliament. The members are not allowed to participate in the proceedings. They are not allowed to vote for the election of the members of the parliamentary committees, right? Plus they are not allowed to vote in the election of the parliamentary committees. Not allowed. And there are also some other provisions like which are the consequences of the suspension of a member. Once a member is suspended, the business which is listed in the member's name, suppose if a member intends to ask a question and he gives a notice thereof that okay, I'm going to ask this question, then the question cannot be asked in the member's name. In that behalf, the notices or the list of businesses that have been listed in the name of the suspended members needs to be removed, right? So these are the major consequences of the suspension of a member. And if a statement comes like once a member is suspended, he is debarred from the membership of the house. Now this statement is incorrect, because even after a member is suspended, he remains a member of the house but not entitled to participate in the proceedings of the house, right? He is not debarred from the membership of the house. He is not disqualified from the membership of the house, right? So we have to understand these nuances. There can be a question around this particular topic. These were the provisions that we have discussed. And now you may brainstorm yourself regarding the implications of suspension, whether we need whether the suspension was justified, and how does it impact the parliamentary democracy, or how does it impacts the dissent, and what is the role of opposition in this regard, whether they should be careful about their behavior. Of course they should be careful about their behavior, but the question is whether they should create disruption in the house. Is it the right of the opposition to create disruption in the house, and so on. There are lots of analytical things that can be asked in the mains around this topic. Of course the topic, like, this is what I expect, it is not going to get directly asked like what are the rules of suspension, etc. You may quote some of the rules, right, for value addition thing and for showing conceptual clarity, but in mains you may expect a conceptual question around this. In prelims there can be a question around the provisions, not, of course, not the rule numbers, etc., but around these provisions or around the rules, like around these voting by the members, resolutions, as we have discussed, right? So wish you all the best. Do prepare the topic. Thank you so much.